Bun găsit! Sunteți la Vocile care contează și așa cum v-am obișnuit până acum, voci care au ceva de transmis, care au un mesaj de comunicat și voci care într-adevăr fac diferența în spațiul acesta public în care vorbește toată lumea. Am onoarea de a fi astăzi musafirul și în egală măsură partenerul de discuție al excelenței sale, domnul ambasador al Regatului Unit al Marii Britanii și Irlandei de Nord în România, excelența sa, domnul Giles Portman. Hello, thank you for having us. Bună ziua, vă mulțumesc că ne-ați primit aici la dumneavoastră.
Bună ziua și mulțumesc pentru invitație.
Suntem foarte onorați că sunteți alături de noi la Euronews România și am să schimb cumva limba de comunicare în așa fel încât să ne înțelegem mai bine. Vom trece în limba engleză pentru un set de întrebări, dar asta nu e o problemă pentru dumneavoastră. Your Excellency, I will change it in English now. I would like to ask you for the beginning, starting with this news that are coming these days from around us. I would like to know what's your opinion about the elections in Moldova.
Well, I think that elections are for the people who live in the country, right? So only Romanians should decide who leads Romania, only British people should decide who leads the United Kingdom, and only Moldovans should decide who leads in Moldova. And we know that in Moldova there was a huge Russian attempt to influence the election, to buy votes, to dissuade the diaspora from voting, to lower people's trust in the whole process. And I think that what we can see is that Moldova was resilient and that it was a trustworthy election and the people of Moldova decided.
Starting from this point, I would like to know your opinion. What about the security in this part of Europe? Because we are EU, you were part a long time from EU, and you are a strong partner for Europe in this moment. But what about the security for this construction?
Well, we left the European Union, but we didn't leave Europe, and of course we're allies in NATO, and I think what's happened over the last few years is that this part of Europe has become very, very important, and Romania's role in defending the eastern flank of Europe has become really important. So the most important role for me as ambassador here is to develop our security relationship and make sure that Romania is the strongest ally it can possibly be, capable of defending itself, its territory, its people, but also capable of defending the eastern flank of NATO. And that's why we have such a good defence and security partnership. It's why we signed a new treaty together. It's why you see the Royal Air Force Typhoons working alongside the Romanian Air Force to conduct air policing. And it's why you saw the UK's participation in this huge NATO exercise, Steadfast Dart, at the beginning of this year. And the UK's participation was the biggest of any country. So I think that all tells you that this is a really important part of Europe, the front line, if you like, of NATO, and that our defence and security relationship is hugely important to us.
It is a time when we are witness almost every week this situation with drones trespassing borders in all Eastern Europe, and not only because also in the Northern Europe it happened. How do you see the evolution and what is doing Russia? Because there is a lot of analysis at this point talking about the provocation coming from Kremlin.
Yeah, so I think we've seen in the course of 3 years of war in Ukraine that the nature of warfare has changed enormously. It's become so much more based on drones, and of course the Russian manufacture of drones has increased enormously. They've also bought an awful lot of drones from Iran, and they're using those not just to conduct attacks on military targets, but as we see day in and day out, attacking the civilian population in Ukraine, attacking schools, hospitals, kindergartens in Kiev on an almost nightly basis. And in terms of these incursions into NATO territory, whether it's Russian fighter jets or Russian drones, these are very, very risky. They're a huge provocation. There's a huge risk of miscalculation. They demonstrate to us yet again that Russia is an aggressor and that Russia is the biggest threat to European peace and security in our time. But they also show that NATO is aware of the threat and capable of responding to the threat. And I think they show that the kind of cooperation I just mentioned, like joint air policing, is exactly what we need to do to work together to defend our territory as NATO allies.
Do you think that the answers that came from United Europe, that came from NATO during all this provocation, are capable to convince Russia to make a step back?
Well, they should be very, very clearly warned that what has happened is unacceptable, that it is a grave risk, and that they should absolutely step back. So a variety of measures were taken. There were discussions in the UN Security Council, there were Article 4 discussions in NATO, but what came through very, very clearly is the solidarity of NATO allies and the need to be absolutely together and on our guard against these kinds of threats.
It is influence that we feel at this moment. I mean, every country in the eastern flank felt it after the war started in Ukraine. Yeah. It's a large coalition of willing in which your country is also a leader. How do you see the things evolving in this direction? How can we be more strong beside Ukraine?
So the coalition of the willing was set up by my Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and the French President, Macron. Okay. To gather that group of countries who are ready to cooperate more closely, to support Ukraine, but also to support efforts to find a peaceful resolution of this war. And it seems at the moment that everyone apart from President Putin wants the war to end. President Zelensky has made it absolutely clear on day one of being asked by President Trump that he was ready to commit to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. President Putin delayed and obfuscated and made it clear that he actually totally disrespects President Trump's efforts to achieve peace. But the coalition of the willing is designed to make sure that when that peace is achieved, it's a durable peace. It has the security guarantees needed to make sure that Russia won't just rearm and come back a year later or 2 years later and invade Ukraine again. So it means we need to guarantee that Ukraine has safe skies. It means that the seas around Ukraine need to be safe. And it also means that Ukraine must be able to regenerate its own defense forces and regenerate its economy. And that planning has taken place over a number of months. It's closely involved the United States. And we're basically well prepared. And those operations could be put into practice within days of a ceasefire and an end to hostilities, but it's up to President Putin to end the war that he started.
And information is talking right in these days about the fact that Russia is calling under arms around 130 new soldiers. It's a lot of people. Russia, of course, is sending messages all over the world that it's not for the war in Ukraine. But can NATO move fast enough to Russian escalation?
Well, what the last 3 years have demonstrated is that Putin has no regard for the sanctity of life, whether it's Ukrainian life, Russian life, or indeed North Korean's life. So he's brought thousands of North Korean soldiers. So he's expanded this war and internationalized this war. Many of them have already been killed. We know that over 1 million Russians are casualties of the war that he started because of his own imperialistic ambitions. So it's unfortunately very clear that the loss of life is not something that weighs heavily on President Putin's conscience. What we have to do is make the cost of war economically too difficult for him to continue. And that's why, as well as continuing to support Ukraine militarily, and of course, Romania has provided 23 packages of military support, for which we're very grateful. We also have to continue to ramp up the economic pressure on Russia. And already those economic sanctions have cost Russia about $450 billion in lost revenues, an incredible amount of money that could have been spent on health and education and welfare and has been wasted on a needless war instead. And we have to make sure that economic pressure increases and those sanctions get tougher and tougher until the war is ended.
This recent General Assembly at the UN registered a change of mind, saying so, of President Trump. It seems that he finally understood that talking with Vladimir Putin doesn't bring any peace results as they tried. I mean, USA tried. But I want to ask your opinion. How do you see what came out from this UN General Assembly? Because we heard also President Trump talking about new pressures for the countries in Europe who are still buying petrol, energy from Russia.
Right. So I think it was a very consequential UN General Assembly this year. So just before I come back to Ukraine and Russia, I mean, two very important other things that happened. First of all, the UK took the decision to recognize Palestine. And secondly, the UK, along with the other E3, ED+3 countries, decided to reimpose sanctions on Iran because of its nuclear non-compliance. But absolutely the third big topic of discussion was Ukraine and Russia's abuse, really, of its position as a security member, a permanent member of the Security Council. I mean, Russia's role is to uphold the UN Charter and promote peace and security. It's done the opposite. So in terms of the call by President Trump, I mean, first of all, we strongly support his efforts to broker a peace deal. And as I say, it's Putin that's disrespecting those efforts. I think he was right to say, first of all, that Europe needed to pay more for its own defense. And you've seen that happen. We've all committed to 5%. And he's also now making the point that we need to be tougher in terms of stopping Russia's capability in terms of exporting oil and gas and also other things like metals. So one of the things that the UK did when we hosted the European political community last year was to set up this organization intended to track and take action on the shadow fleet of illegal export of Russian oil. So we need to do more on that, but we do need to look at going after the remaining routes that Russia is using to circumvent sanctions and to sell its oil, gas and metals around the world, including in Europe.
I would like to know your position, your country position about the security relationship between Romania and the United Kingdom, because we have a lot to do on this field.
Yeah, as I said, the most important thing for me is to develop that security relationship. So we signed a strategic partnership 2 years ago, which puts defence and security front and centre. We signed a new defence treaty last year. The new treaty that we signed between the UK and the European Union puts defence and security at the heart of what we do. We're working together very closely in terms of securing the Black Sea, securing the skies above Romania, but also increasing exercising and training together. And another area where we've worked really closely is in that area of fake news, disinformation, cyber warfare, hybrid warfare in general. And I think we have a very like-minded approach to those challenges and are sharing a lot of expertise and experience too.
We all are fighting against this hybrid war who is led by Russia in this part of the world. It seems in this moment that the country who resisted the best It was Moldavia. I'm coming back to this topic, which was the first on our discussion. Maybe Moldavia school case, golden standard, maybe for the way that they dismantle the topics coming from Russia during this pre-elections time?
Yeah, so I think the key thing here is that we continue to share experience and best practice. So last year, our former foreign ministers of the UK and Romania visited Chisinau, and we shared our experience about how we deal with disinformation and hybrid warfare. Now I think we'll all be asking Moldova for its experience and learning from Moldova's experience in these elections. But just speaking for the UK, we approach it really in three ways. First of all, we want to disrupt those who attack us through hybrid means, and that means sanctioning them and attributing disinformation. Secondly, we want to compete with them, and that means by improving our own strategic communications, fact-based communications. And thirdly, we want to defend our own democracies and free medias and independent media. So that means supporting quality, investigative, independent media.
What's the United Kingdom position looking the access of Moldavia and Ukraine also to the European Union?
So EU enlargement is a subject close to my heart, having negotiated on Romania and Bulgaria's accession 20 years ago and started accession negotiations with Croatia and Turkey as well. Since then, of course, the UK has left the European Union. So I feel it's not so much my place anymore to offer advice on this, but what I would say is it's for the citizens of every country to decide. So the citizens of the UK decided that they would rather leave the European Union. There's been a strong message over many years that the citizens of Ukraine wanted a future that was more closely linked with the values and the freedoms of the European Union and the West. And we've seen a similar message from the people of Moldova in the last few days. So what's important is that in democracies, the people are allowed to decide what kind of future, social, economic, democratic, they want, and not have that denied them by an imperialistic neighboring power like Russia.
And coming back in Romania and the relationship between Romania and United Kingdom, we have a very large community of Romanians living in the United Kingdom. Yeah. How do you see what's coming from this, the benefits and maybe the problems also?
Well, I see a lot of benefits. The diaspora in the UK is certainly well over 1 million people. They do vital jobs in our construction industry, in our services sector, in our health service, but they're also taking important leadership roles in business and now beginning to take leadership roles in politics. So I see it as hugely positive. And I also see it as a way to link our countries together. You know, the reason we have so many direct flights from so many British cities to Romanian cities is because of the people-to-people contacts. And I think it can also help our commercial and trade relations too. So just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Manchester and in London, looking at Romanian businesses that are investing in the UK and are creating jobs and prosperity. We have many British businesses, over 3,200 British businesses doing the same here in Romania. So those people-to-people ties can boost our trade, and that can create jobs and boost the prosperity of everyone in the UK and Romania. So it's hugely positive. I was also in London recently with two excellent Romanian tech companies that were floating on the London Stock Exchange. So you're seeing a real range of Romanian businesses seeing the UK as a great market, but also as a great launch pad to global markets, including the US.
Coming back, I would like to know how do you see, because it's the same the same field, saying so, the discussion. How do you see the security at Black Sea in this context? It's not only the territory of Romania; it's also Black Sea who is pointed out with on this geostrategical situation that we are living in.
Yeah, so unfortunately the war in Ukraine has had a very, very negative impact on the Black Sea. It's had a negative environmental impact. It's had a negative impact in terms of trade and economics, and of course a really negative impact in terms of security because of all these free-floating mines that are now in the Black Sea. So we have 3 NATO allies bordering the Black Sea, Turkey, Bulgaria and Romania, and they've joined together in this demining coalition, which we're very supportive of. So I think Romania's role also in securing the safety of the Black Sea is very important. Unfortunately, that's a task that I think is going to take years because the mine challenge is such a big one in the Black Sea, but it's really important to get through it because Romania can be a really important link between Europe and the Caucasus and beyond. There are huge energy and trade opportunities across the Black Sea, and Romania is really well placed to benefit from them coming through the port of Constanța. But first of all, Putin has to end the war and we have to make the Black Sea safe.
President Nico Șordan spoke these days about the fact that he's planning to prepare Romania for a security hub in this region. How does support UK this plan of Romania?
Well, I think there is great potential for Romania to play a really leading role because, as I said, this part of Europe has really been the centre of attention in the last few years. That's why I think it was so important that Romania was included in the coalition of the willing from the start, and that President Nico Șordan has joined, I think, every meeting of the coalition of the willing and spoken at those meetings. So let's just take one example, which is MK base near Constanța, you know, on track to be the biggest air base in Europe, and a hugely important asset for Romania, but for its NATO allies as well, both in protecting the security of the Black Sea and in terms of potentially protecting the security of the eastern flank and the security and safety of Ukraine after the end of the war. So I think Romania's role and importance as a security ally has become much more important, but there's the potential for it to be even more important.
Does UK see any points where we need improvement? I mean, also in this topic of security, energy, developing economics in this part of Europe?
Well, I'll tell you one area where I think there is definite room for improvement and development in the relationship, and that's in terms of defence capabilities. Because as I said, we've all committed to increasing our defence budgets to up to 5%. So that's a lot of extra money that needs to be spent, but it needs to be spent at a time when we face some quite difficult economic challenges. So we need to make sure that we spend that money really carefully. And the best way we can do that, I think, is through this EU program called the SAFE program, which is 150 billion euros worth of soft loans. Romania has been allocated the second largest amount of potential loans, which is great news for Romania. But also, really importantly, the UK has the opportunity to be part of that program. And of course, the UK defence industry is one of the biggest and best in the world. And we're convinced that there's real opportunities for the UK and the Romanian defence sectors to join up to increase the capabilities of Romania, but to do it efficiently, quickly, and in a cost-effective way. So it's really important for us that Romania backs those discussions in Brussels to make sure that mechanism is up and running really, really quickly, really in the coming weeks.
I would like to know, because we are talking about so much this funding for new strategic industries. I mean, in the security zone, we need more capabilities all over Europe, because we know we do not have any army able to respond to these aggressions coming from east. There is any request from such industry, I mean army industry in UK for partnership with Romanian outlets?
So there's a lot of interest. So I was back in the UK recently with a senior Romanian delegation at our major biennial defence and security show, where there are 1,600 British companies, British and international companies, exhibiting. But we also brought over 25 leading British defence companies to Romania a few weeks ago to explain what they could offer and to understand better the gaps and the capability needs in Romania. So I think there's plenty of potential in terms of military satellites, for example, in terms of upgrading the Romanian Navy, in terms of upgrading defence fighting vehicles for the army, but also in terms of ramping up the production of artillery, because there's a real need for more artillery, both in and ammunition, both in Ukraine but also in NATO allies. So I think there's plenty of opportunities.
Your nation is a naval nation, saying so. Building ships who are, I don't know, crossing all the oceans in the world and all the oceans in the history. I would like to know if is there any interest on this field. I mean, we have these constructions outlets in Constanța. That's the question. Is there any?
Yeah. So of course, at the moment, there's a restriction on new military vessels entering the Black Sea through the Bosphorus Straits because it is at war. But after the war has ended, I think there's certainly potential to develop our naval cooperation. So the two frigates, for example, in service in the Romanian Navy are ex-Royal Navy frigates. I think they can absolutely be modernized and improved and fitted out with more modern capabilities. The same goes for the Romanian Navy's mine hunters. And I think there's potential for all sorts of extra capabilities in the Black Sea. But once again, first of all, Putin has to stop the war.
Yeah. And we do not know when this will happen. I do not want to close this interview before asking you a few questions about this almost legendary relationship between Romania and King Charles. How does we stay at this time? Because I know King Charles had some provocations during this time, and Romania is somehow far away. Saying so in terms of, I don't know, kilometers, miles.
Well, not as far away as you would think, because I literally saw pictures just before we sat down. King Charles visited an exhibition of the artwork of Queen Marii of Romania in London, hosted in one of the royal chapels in London. So I thought it was wonderful that he took the opportunity to engage with Romania and with Romanian people in the UK, even while he hasn't been able to visit over the last year or 18 months. But I know, and everyone knows, how much he loves Romania. I've seen his projects. I've visited Viskri several times, but I've seen other projects, and we would all love to see him back here soon.
Do you think like the Prince William and Princess Catherine might develop the same interest for Romania as King Charles?
Well, if they listen to the king, then I think they couldn't resist the opportunity to come here and see what captivated him so much about Romania over so many years.
Your Excellency, Giles Portman, thank you very much for having us. It was a pleasure.
For me too. Thank you so much.
And I hope that we will meet someday in our studios at Euronews Romania.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Vă mulțumesc și vouă. Sunt Paula Rusu. Numai bine.